They could destroy the messenger, but they couldn't kill the message. They couldn't stop an idea. Every time a witch saved a child with a poultice, every time a forbidden text was copied by candlelight, every time a peasant simply looked at the world and believed his own eyes over the dogma he was fed, that was the conquest. A slow, silent victory of truth, nibbling at the very foundations of power. This is the most important lesson the past can teach us. Because the war isn't over. It's being fought right now. He saw the understanding in your eyes today, not just the fear. He saw you grasp the lesson beyond the chemistry. He beckons you to follow, not to the chapel for Vespers, but to his own small stone cell. The air is thick with the scent of beeswax and old leather. From a locked chest beneath his cot, he removes a book. It is not the Bible. The binding is dark, worn smooth by centuries of careful hands. There is no cross on the cover. Instead, branded deep into the leather, is a strange crest you have never seen. You have been taught that the air itself is poisoned by miasma, by the alignment of the planets, by the wrath of angels. And this man, this merchant, is telling you the apocalypse is being delivered by a rodent. It shatters every assumption you hold about the world. The rector stands, his face a mask of conflict. To his right, the priest, promising hellfire. To his left, Giovanni, offering a sliver of earthly hope, wrapped in heresy. The city's death toll, you realize, will not be a measure of God's anger, but then he moves to another cluster of stars, a faint wisp you've never noticed. The Weaver's shuttle, he murmurs, his breath fogging in the frigid air. She tells us the wind will shift before dawn. He points again. The serpent's tooth. It means the fishing grounds will be rich tomorrow. These are not the stories of saints and angels. These are the field notes of 1,000 generations who lived and died by this knowledge. This is a Bible written in starlight. Then his hand stops, a lie, whispered from the pulpit and proclaimed by the reeve. 99% of the people in your village believe it. They starve on thin gruel and black bread, their bodies aching, their children gaunt, and they curse their own bad luck. But you are learning the truth. It slithers in the dark with men like Alaric. This isn't about sport. It's about protein. It's about power. A well-fed man has strength. He has energy. He has the audacity to think, to question, to fight. The sound you hear is not prayer. It is the sound of a secret being counted. From the chapel above, the drone of Latin chant seeps through the stone floor, a holy blanket meant to cover the sound of sin. But you are beneath it all, in a locked room where the only God is arithmetic. The air is thick with the scent of old wax and cold iron. Your fingers, stained with ink, are sorting the currency of Christendom. A silver florin from Florence, a gold ducat from Venice, a heavy English sterling. It was a truth so dangerous, it had to be buried. It's the same institutional arrogance that echoes today. Think of the promising alternative treatments, the simple, inexpensive cures that are ridiculed and dismissed by a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry. The system must be protected, even at the patient's expense. The man groans, his body going limp, and a small, perfect circle of bone comes away in the trephine. A dark, thick fluid wells up from the hole, and for the first time in an hour, the man's breathing deepens. He's not dead. He's sleeping. The midwife knew which herbs stopped a fever, even as the physician prescribed prayer. The mason knew the geometry to raise a cathedral, a secret he passed not in Latin, but in marks on stone. The sailor knew the earth was round because he saw the mast disappear over the horizon. This was mouse knowledge, a virus of truth that spreads through whispers because it is useful, because it is real. They weren't part of an organization. They were nodes in a network of survival. The church could burn a woman, hang a poacher, or disband an order of knights. It's the secret ingredient of invincibility. It's a perfect metaphor, you realize, for power itself. Every institution, every kingdom, every church presents a clean face of stone and piety to the world. But its true, lasting strength is always derived from something it publicly condemns. The forbidden knowledge, the ruthless tactic, the dirty secret mixed into its very foundation. You are no longer looking at a wall. You are looking at a conspiracy made solid. That night, long after the horns have signaled the end of work, the master mason finds you by the dying embers of the cook fire. From a Venetian trader, a lost book he claimed was ancient. He dares not say more, but the implication is clear. The source of this idea is not Christian. It is pagan, or worse, forbidden knowledge. It did not speak of sin, Giovanni whispers, his eyes wide. It spoke of how the sickness traveled. It said the carriers were not demons, but something small, something that scurries in the holds of ships. It mentioned a mouse. A mouse. The word is so small, so mundane, it's comical. It's the same reason a new kind of science is attacked today by institutions whose power is threatened by its truths. When the evidence of the melting ice and the rising seas tells a different story than the one that protects profits and power, the evidence itself is declared a heresy. The methods are the same. Attack the messenger, sow doubt, and declare your own convenient narrative as the only sacred truth. You watch Terran's finger trace a familiar shape. He calls it the Great Plow. His silence is a craft, learned in places like this, in the dead of night. You follow, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. Every snap of a twig underfoot sounds like a confession. The law is absolute. The trees, the beasts, the very air you breathe in this forest belongs to the Lord. To hunt his deer is to steal from the king himself. The penalty is death. A slow, public death designed to be a lesson. They tell you it's about preserving the noble sport of the hunt. They all point to a single, remote location in the northern wastes, a place whispered about in stories, a place that, according to any official map, doesn't exist. What were they all running toward? But what the history books conveniently forget to mention is why. They weren't condemned for being ineffective. They were condemned because they were too effective. Every life a common barber surgeon saved with a simple drill was a life not saved by prayer. It was a miracle stolen from God's ledger, a direct threat to the church's spiritual monopoly. If a man with dirty fingernails and a knowledge of bone could cheat death, what did you need a priest for? It proved that salvation, at least the earthly kind, could be found in a craftsman's hands, not just in a bishop's blessing. You have been searching for a person, a mastermind in a dark room, a shadowy figure with a secret book, the one they called the mouse who conquered Rome. But the greatest secret, the one that truly dismantles history, is this. There was no mouse, not a single person, not one society. The name was a ghost, a symbol for something far more dangerous, an idea. The mouse was the shattering realization that true knowledge doesn't flow down from a king's throne or a priest's pulpit. It seeps up from the ground. It was the forbidden, practical truth. He leans in closer, his breath smelling of cloves and secrets. It even heals itself, he whispers, a heretical truth in the wind. Microfractures, too small for the eye to see, are sealed over time by the life we give it. You understand now, the unconquered citadels, the fortresses of the great military orders like the Templars and Hospitallers. Their legendary strength isn't a miracle. It's a recipe, a pagan technique the church condemned, driving it into the shadows, while secretly allowing their most effective soldiers to use it. The metallic tang in the air isn't from battle. It feels like a precursor to a modern nightmare. That moment when an authority you've trusted your entire life tells you to ignore the evidence of your own senses, to embrace a comforting ideology even as the morgues are filling up. The powerful would rather let you die than admit they don't have all the answers. Giovanni sees the doubt. He leans in, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper that barely carries across the oaken table. I have read something, he stammers, knowing the danger of his words. An old text. The church's power is built on a single, unshakable story, that all truth flows from Scripture, interpreted by them. Their universe is a tidy, theological model where man and earth are the sole focus of a celestial drama. But Terran's universe is different. It's a vast, intricate machine of stunning predictability. It operates on principles you can observe, test, and trust with your life. If the people learn to trust the rhythm of the stars more than the edicts of the priest, the entire system of control collapses. The greatest weapon of the Middle Ages wasn't the sword, it was hunger. What they don't want you to know is that this weapon was wielded with a terrifying, hidden precision. The forest floor is a carpet of black, wet leaves that muffle your steps. Moonlight struggles to piece the canopy, and the air is so cold it feels like a solid thing in your lungs. Ahead of you, a shadow detaches itself from a gnarled oak. This is Alaric. He moves with a silence that doesn't belong to a man who works the fields. It's the lives that depend on the lie your clothing tells. You pull the final stitch tight, your heart pounding a frantic rhythm against your ribs. The new route is encoded. But as you trace the entire, sprawling map with your mind's eye, the paths, the warnings, the safe houses, a chilling realization settles in your gut. They all connect. Every secret path, every hidden crossing, every thread of hope woven by hundreds of people like you across the kingdom. They don't just lead away from danger, they all lead towards something. They say only God can open a man's head without ending his life. But this is the secret they don't want you to know. This is the truth 99% of people, even today, will never learn. For certain injuries, for the terrible pressure building inside the skull that crushes the brain, this butchery works. Thomas isn't trying to let demons out, he's letting the pressure out. He's saving this man's life with a tool and a technique the establishment has declared an act of godless evil. The church condemns men like Thomas. They call them hedge wizards and charlatans. The scavenger that lives in the walls and survives the fall of empires. A final piece of the puzzle is at hand. The secret of the mouse would explain everything. The pale mortar blushes, turning a sickly pinkish gray. This is the old way, the Roman way. He calls it hot mixing, a forbidden name for a forbidden art. He tells you the secret that changes everything. The milk proteins, the blood, they don't just bind the sand and lime. They weave into it, creating a substance that is more like sinew than stone. It remains flexible. When the earth shivers or a trebuchet stone strikes, it gives instead of shattering. It breathes with the seasons, resisting the creeping damp that turns other castles to green-furred ruins. To suggest a worldly cure for a divine punishment is heresy. You look around the room. You see the terror in the eyes of your friends, your neighbors. They are good men, God-fearing men. But they are also men who have heard the stories of fathers locking their doors on their dying sons, of bodies being piled in the streets like firewood. They are being asked to choose between their immortal souls and the lives of their children. The truth is, it was happening every night, on ships like this, in fields waiting for planting, in the quiet wisdom of women who knew the moon's pull on the tides and the blood. This is a peasant science, an oral map of the cosmos, passed down from grandmother to grandson, a truth that lived in memory, not on paper. And it worked. It kept ships from shattering on unseen rocks. It told farmers the precise day to sow their seeds for the best harvest. It was a science of pure survival, and that's why it was so dangerous. "They can burn my body," she whispers, her voice a dry rasp, just as the heavy oak door splinters inward. "Don't let them burn the knowledge too." A cluster of tiny seed stitches marks a barn with a hidden compartment. The type of dye is a legend. Walnut for a safe house, lichen for a treacherous river crossing, madder root for the location of a sympathizer with food. You carry the blueprint for a revolution on your back. You wear the escape route for a heretic condemned to burn, for a family of serfs who refuse to let their daughter be sold with the land. The constant, irritating chafe of the wool against your skin isn't just discomfort. It's a reminder. It's the weight of the secret. "I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request." They knew that knowledge has no religion. As this new reality settles in, your gloved finger traces the spine of a heavy codex. It's then you see it. A tiny, insignificant detail you almost missed. Stamped into the corner of the leather binding is a small, simple shape. You quickly pull out another book, one written in Hebrew. It's there too. You check a rolled Chinese scroll. There, inked at the very end, on every single document, from every corner of the known world, is the same tiny symbol. A mouse, the creature that thrives in the dark. Your hands tremble as you lift the lid. The smell hits you first. Coppery, salty, metallic. It's the smell of a fresh wound. The bucket is filled with dark, viscous animal blood from the abattoir down the lane. Some of the younger apprentices cross themselves, their lips moving in silent, frantic prayer. This feels wrong. This feels like a desecration. The church teaches that faith is our mortar. The master mason's voice is a low rumble, cutting through the wind. They are wrong. Faith cracks. He makes you watch as the blood is poured in. It implies that man, not God, can stop this tide. It implies that God is not in control. It undermines everything. And this is the truth that 99% of the world would never hear. The secret buried under a mountain of piety and death. While the rest of Europe was praying, Ragusa was planning. They were committing the ultimate sin of the 14th century, They were thinking, "This is an act against God's will," bellows a priest who sits on the council, his face turning a blotchy red. To deny entry to travelers is to deny charity. He is reading. He whispers, and the sound is a dry rasp against the wet roar of the sea. The names he speaks are not the sanitized Latin of the priests. They are older, guttural, words that taste of soil and iron. He is tracing patterns with a chapped finger in the cold air, connecting stars the church doesn't recognize. This is the heresy they don't tell you about in the history books. 99% of people think the revolution against the church's cosmology began with Copernicus and a telescope. The charge was witchcraft, but the real crime was daring to know more than she was told. A sudden, violent banging on the door makes you both freeze. The priest's voice, righteous and cruel, cuts through the wood. "Open in the name of God, witch!" Her eyes don't show fear. They show a deep, ancient sorrow. She moves with a speed that defies her age, pressing a small, leather-wrapped bundle into your palm. Her fingers are as cold as grave dirt. A priest? A man who believes God's mercy is for everyone, not just the rich, has agreed to help. You must add his church to the map. Your own cloak is your canvas. You work by feel, your fingers knowing the terrain of the fabric better than your eyes ever could. The needle makes a soft, rhythmic shh as it pulls the linen thread through the heavy wool, an ASMR quality whisper of rebellion. Each stitch is a footstep. A tight series of running stitches becomes a safe path through a forest. The barber surgeon, a man named Thomas with hands like worn leather, leans in. He isn't a doctor. He can't read the Latin texts the university-trained physicians clutch like holy relics. He's a man of the street, a man of razors and bone saws. And right now, he is performing a forbidden miracle. In his hand, he holds a treffin, a simple crank drill with a wicked-looking point. He places the tip against the man's skull, just above the swollen, purple bruise from where a horse kicked him. Then he begins to turn the handle. A silent, desperate battle against the one true enemy they all recognized: ignorance. They were preserving the genius of humanity from every culture, every faith, against the mainstream powers that sought to burn it, to bury it, to control the world by making it smaller, darker, and more afraid. Think of it, risking torture, excommunication, and death, not for a God in heaven, but for an idea on a page. The modern world is obsessed with ideological divides, but here is the proof. The 800-year-old secret that the most brilliant minds of the past saw beyond it. One is covered with a deb sackcloth. The other is wood, tightly lidded. The apprentices fetch them. They move with a strange reverence, a fear that seems out of place on a construction site. The first bucket is opened. Its milk, thick and beginning to sour, skimmed from the priory's own herds. The master mason nods, and it's poured into the steaming, churning mortar. The hissing softens to a thick, greedy gurgle. Then he looks at you. He points to the second bucket. His eyes are chips of flint. You open it. He pauses, and you can hear the wet, frantic scratching of the scribe's quill, documenting a conversation that could get them all burned. We must stop the ships, all of them. Not forever, but for 30 days. A Trentino. We force them to wait in the harbor, to prove they do not carry death with them. Silence. Not a prayerful silence, but the dead, airless silence of blasphemy. You feel the metallic taste of fear in your mouth. What he suggests is a purely human act, a secular solution. The darkness isn't just an absence of light. It's a physical presence, a cold, wet blanket that smothers the world and leaves only the sound of water and wind. The sea is a black, churning chaos, and the sky is a terrifyingly clear map of silent fire. There are no charts spread on a table under the flickering lamplight. There is no compass, no astrolabe, none of the tools the wealthy merchants in faraway cities boast of. There is only a man named Terran, his back to the mast, his face turned to the heavens. He isn't praying. Control over childbirth, control over population, control over the one power men could never possess, the creation of life itself. Her knowledge threatens everything. It means women can choose. It means a village's growth isn't dictated by God's will, but by a woman's wisdom. This is the intellectual genocide they don't want you to know about. It's a war you still see raging today, in courtrooms and capitals, a battle over the same forbidden territory. A woman's right to access medical knowledge about her own body. It is the ancestor of hiding a secret message in a digital photograph, a ghost in the machine of the loom. It proves that the powerless have always found a way to scream in silence, right under the noses of their jailers. Back in your hut, the only light is a sliver of moon through a crack in the wattle. The air is thick with the smell of sleep and fear. You pull a needle from the thatch, its eye a glint of hope. You have a new piece of information. The sound is what you remember first. Not a scream, but a low, wet crunch. The man's head is locked between your knees, his hair matted with sweat and something darker. The air is thick with the iron tang of blood, the sour reek of cheap ale on the barber surgeon's breath, and the holy scent of incense meant to drive away the demons they believe are rattling inside this poor man's skull. You're just a boy, an apprentice, and your only job is to hold him still. Don't let him thrash. Don't look away. This vault isn't a treasury. It's a library, a medieval Noah's Ark of forbidden knowledge, curated and protected by the most unlikely alliance in human history. The Knights Templar, the keepers of Christ's legacy. The Hashashin of Alamut, the Ismaili masters of stealth and shadow. And, based on the Kabbalistic texts hidden among the scientific scrolls, Jewish mystics from across the Mediterranean. They weren't fighting each other in a holy war. That was the cover story, the grand, bloody theater for the world. Their real war, the secret war, was fought together. You've seen it devour cartloads of chalk and wood, spitting out a fine, white, hungry powder, quicklime. Now, the men are slaking it. They pour water and a violent, hissing cloud erupts, thick with a heat that can melt flesh from bone. The air smells sharp, chemical, and clean. But that's not the smell that will haunt you, not the one that will cling to the back of your throat for the rest of your life. The Master Mason, a man whose face is a map of forgotten battles. Gestures to two buckets set apart from the rest. It travels with men. It travels on ships. The rector, a man whose piety is known throughout the city, scoffs. And what is your proof, merchant? A vision? A dream? This is the moment. The secret that changed everything. Giovanni doesn't speak of visions. He speaks of something far more dangerous: observation. The ships that carry the plague, he says, their crews are sick for a month, and then they are either dead or they are well. The sickness has a lifespan. The church declared The earth was the center of God's universe, a fixed point for all of creation to orbit. But the secret whispered on the ocean wind, the one that could get you burned alive, was that God's eye was looking somewhere else entirely. You are on the deck of a ship, a heaving, groaning creature of wood and tar, and the salt spray is a baptism of ice on your face. And then she looks at you, her eyes clear as winter ice, and commits the ultimate heresy. "There are ways," she says, her voice a low hum, "to prevent this from happening again if it is not your wish. A woman's womb should be her own garden, not a public field for the church to plow." She speaks of tansy, of silphium, of Queen Anne's lace. She gives you knowledge. And in this world, for a woman, knowledge is a death sentence. This isn't about Satanism. It's about control. The hem of her tunic is frayed in a specific way. 3 long threads, 1 short, 3 long. It's not damage, it's a signpost. It means her root cellar can hide 2 people for 1 night. You pass a carter, his tunic stained with mud. But look closer. The mending on his left sleeve uses a thread dyed with onion skin, a slightly sickly yellow. It's a warning. Someone was caught on this road last week. This is the medieval internet, woven from wool and desperation. But as another window creaks open further down the street, and a different child's voice begins the same rhyme, a new fear grips you. If you can hear the code, who else is listening? And if a simple song can hide a secret this deep, what other forbidden truths are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for us to learn how to listen? Then you unroll a scroll detailing Indian surgical techniques, methods of inoculation and hygiene that would have been condemned as demonic witchcraft in Paris or Rome. You stop breathing when you unroll a familiar schematic. It's the original, full design for the machine found on the palimpsest, the one they called an unholy miracle. And here, in a small, wax-sealed vial, is a desiccated powder with a simple label, the formula for the blood mortar. It's all here, the blueprints for the heretical quarantine of Ragusa, proving it was a calculated scientific act, not a desperate guess. What they don't want you to know is that a castle is a living thing. You believe their strength comes from the size of their stones, the genius of their geometry. 99% of people believe this lie. But the real power, the secret that makes a fortress truly unbreakable, is not in the stone, it's in the blood. You are high on the scaffolding, and the wind tries to peel you from the wood. Below, the courtyard is a chaos of shouts, ringing hammers, and the growl of the lime pit. It's a beast, that pit. But in this room, tonight, another idea is being spoken. It is a whisper, a venomous, terrifying heresy. An old merchant named Giovanni de Ragusio, his face ashen, stands before the council. His hands tremble as he speaks. "The church is wrong," he says, and the words hang in the air like smoke, choking you all. The other councilmen shift in their heavy robes. One makes a sign against evil. To question the church is to question God himself. It is madness. It is not a judgment. Giovanni continues, his voice gaining a desperate strength. It is a sickness. While you mock the powerful, what secrets are the master architects hiding in these other forms? What forbidden knowledge was so dangerous it had to be preserved this way, encrypted in stone and hidden in the one place no one would ever think to look, staring right back at them from the walls of God's own house? And the library was the female body. The Malleus Maleficarum, the new, dreaded witch-hunting manual the priests now carry, isn't just about theology. A shocking number of its pages are a direct assault on her, the midwife. It asks, why does she know more than a university-trained physician? Why do more babies live in her hands than in God's? Why does she know which herbs can stop a life from starting at all? She gives you a bitter tea that eases the pain. The baby shifts. Relief floods through you, so pure it feels like a baptism. It's a French knot, a small, hard nubbin of thread. It signifies danger. The ford is watched. This is the secret that changed everything. The one historians are only now uncovering with technologies we can barely imagine. They call it hyperspectral imaging, a light that sees the ghosts of forgotten patterns. They call it a revolution in textile analysis. You call it Tuesday. You move through the market, a ghost in plain sight. Your head is down, your shoulders stooped, but your eyes are scanning, not the faces, but the clothes. You see an old woman selling withered carrots. You are part of this conspiracy. Your life depends on a song. You realize with a sudden cold clarity that history isn't just written by kings and popes. It's also written in the secret lyrics of children, in the recipes for poached herbs, in the silent acts of defiance that flicker like candles in the darkest of nights. The little girl sings the last line again, and you know a runner will be moving soon, risking everything for a stranger's life, guided by a ghost of a melody. The truth, hidden in the lead, is that they were collaborators. You are there as the first box is pried open. The metallic tang of ancient lead mixes with the dry, fragile scent of paper that has not breathed modern air since the 13th century. You lift out the first manuscript. The script isn't Latin, it's Arabic, a treatise on optics by Ibn al-Haytham that European science wouldn't grasp for another 400 years. In the next box, you find star charts from Song Dynasty China, so precise they map celestial events not yet discovered by the West. They are staring at a blueprint for a future that was systematically murdered in its cradle. News from Genoa and Venice arrives on ghost ships, manned by skeletons. It speaks of a pestilence so absolute, it feels like the final seal of the apocalypse being broken. The Church, from your local priest to the Pope in Avignon, has one unassailable answer. It is God's wrath, a divine judgment for the sins of mankind. The only cure is penance, prayer, processions of flagellants whipping their own backs to bloody ribbons in the streets, a desperate, shrieking appeal to a silent heaven. You are told to repent, for the end is nigh. Past the leering bishop and the greedy merchant, you see them, the strange ones. They are not caricatures of any man you know. They depict twisted, non-human figures that haunt your dreams. Creatures with features that belong to no animal on God's green earth. Some hold strange objects, geometric shapes that feel ancient and wrong. Others seem to be demonstrating a kind of knowledge, their stone claws pointing to stars in an unfamiliar pattern. This is the part of the job that makes your blood run cold. You hear the soft, rhythmic thump-thump of a stone pestle grinding dried willow bark in a wooden mortar, a sound more calming than any psalm. She is turning the baby, using knowledge passed down from her mother and her mother's mother, a secret chain of touch and wisdom stretching back into the mists of time. This is the real apostolic succession. And here is the secret that gets women like her killed. 99% of people believe they were burned for cursing crops or dancing with the devil. The truth is far more terrifying. They were burning librarians. And that is exactly what keeps you alive. Because they are all wrong. 99% of people, then and now, see only poverty in these threads. They don't see the language. Your fingers, calloused and cracked, trace a patch sewn near the hem. To anyone else, it's a clumsy repair, a sign of thrift. To you, it is a sentence. The crosshatch pattern, tight and precise, isn't for strength. It means the bailiff in the next village takes bribes. The number of vertical threads, 7, tells you the price, a single hen. You feel the knot at the corner. It's a call for a drop. More herbs, a loaf of bread, a skin of clean water, left in the dead of night in a designated spot. The sweet song of a child becomes an encrypted message, a request for aid sent from behind enemy lines. It's no different from modern resistance movements using coded language on social media to organize under the nose of state surveillance. They turn the tools of the everyday into weapons of dissent. They turn a nursery rhyme into a lifeline. You look at your own small pouch of herbs, the scent sharp and bitter. The air is thick with the dust of centuries as the vault groans open, the sound of stones scraping against stone for the first time in nearly 800 years. There is no glint of gold, no hoard of crusader treasure. Inside, there is only a collection of heavy, lead-lined boxes. A profound sense of anticlimax hangs in the air, but it is a feeling that is about to be shattered forever. Because what they found inside rewrites everything. 99% of history is built on the lie that these groups were mortal enemies. Under the strange, purple light, the text on exorcism becomes a faint ghost. And beneath it, glowing with an eerie electric blue, the invisible ink bleeds back into existence. The schematic. Every line, every gear, every impossible angle you tried to erase is now perfectly, horrifyingly clear. It is a drawing of a complex machine, utterly unlike anything known from your era. And as the researchers zoom in, a new detail emerges from the ghostly page, a series of equations, written in a variant of Greek that aren't supposed to exist for another 300 years. To save your city, you must first commit a crime against God. The air in the rector's palace is thick enough to drink, a foul cocktail of sweat, fear, and the beeswax from 100 guttering candles. You are a councilman in Ragusa, a jewel of a city perched on the Adriatic. Outside, the sea is a shimmering blue promise, but you know what's coming across that water. Not trade, not wealth, but a creeping, black shadow that has already consumed half of Italy. They call it the Great Mortality. New laser scans, centuries from now, will prove you right. They will scan the gargoyles of Notre Dame and other great houses of God and find what you already know, that these are not random beasts. They are portraits, documented historical figures, immortalized in their own corruption. It is the only justice you will ever get, the last laugh echoing in stone for 1,000 years. But this raises a more chilling question. While you and your fellow Masons carve the faces of your human tormentors, there are other instructions, other carvings. Look along the balustrade. The air inside is thick with the smell of drying herbs and wood smoke. It doesn't smell of Satan. It smells of safety. She is old, her face a roadmap of every birth and death this village has seen for 50 years. Her hands, though wrinkled and stained with poultices, are more certain than any man's. She doesn't pray, she works. She has you lie on a straw pallet, her fingers gently probing your swollen abdomen, her knuckles pressing, coaxing. The greatest secret of the Middle Ages wasn't written in a book. It was worn on the backs of the powerless, and the authorities saw nothing but rags. The wool of your cloak is a living thing. It chafes your neck, raw and constant, a scratchy penance for being alive. It stinks of lanolin, of damp earth, of the wood smoke that clings to everything you own. This is your skin, your shelter, your identity. To a lord, a knight, a priest, this coarse, dun-colored garment screams one word: peasant, insignificant, not worth a second glance. Elsbeth's voice doesn't waver. It's clear, deliberate, a broadcast. We all fall down. This is the part that chills you to your soul. It's not about dying. It's a signal. In a city under strict quarantine, where to be sick is to be condemned, this is a cry for help. It means we are using the forbidden protocol. We are fighting, but our supplies are low. It's a message for the underground network, the brewers, the weavers, the midwives who move through the city's secret arteries. The symbol on the vault is wrong. In the dust and chaos of the 2003 bomb earthquake, as the ground tore open the legendary fortress of Alamut, the archaeologists expected to find a cross. But this seal, deep beneath the rubble in a chamber that was never meant to be found, is different. It's the Templar's secret inner sigil, two knights sharing a single horse. A symbol not of faith, but of poverty, brotherhood, and a secret they would die for. A detailed guide on the nature of demons, their secret names, and the rituals to cast them from the human soul. You are burying a machine that could change the world under a prayer meant to tame it. And for 800 years, you succeed. The flickering candlelight dissolves. It becomes the cold, steady hum of an ultraviolet lamp in a 21st century laboratory. Your monk's robe is gone, replaced by the white coat of a historian. The scent of beeswax and damp stone is replaced by the sterile smell of archival preservation. And the question that now hangs between you, unspoken and terrifying, is not if the Lord will come for you tonight, but what you will do when he does. You carve his eyes small and squinting, like a pig's, because that's how he looks at your wife when he comes to take the hen you were saving for the winter feast. You chisel his mouth into a grotesque, leering smile, the kind he gives right before he tells you that God sees your sacrifice and is pleased. You know better. You know God is not in the gold plates of the altar, but in the desperate courage of a man secretly carving the truth into the face of a lie. Your belly is a taut drum beneath your worn wool tunic, and for 2 days, the life inside you has refused to turn. The village priest, his face pale and clammy as a mushroom, offered you prayers and a bleeding. He said a demon holds the child sideways in your womb. But you saw the way he looked at his knife, the same way a butcher looks at a side of beef. So you fled. You came here, to her cottage at the edge of the woods, the one they whisper about. Why etch the symbol of a pest, a creature of filth and plague, in your most sacred and secret place? To an outsider, it makes no sense. But you know, it is a reminder of your true enemy, the one you can't defeat with prayer or science. The mouse isn't just an animal. It's a promise of what's coming for everyone, and why this secret work is so desperate, so important, and so doomed. The child's song continues, a fragile thread in the oppressive silence. Ashes, ashes. This isn't about cremation, not yet. It's the second part of the protocol. Wood ash rubbed into the skin and dusted on the floors. It desiccates the flea larva. It creates a hostile environment for the carriers of the disease. It's the sound of a household cleansing itself, fighting back with the dirt under its feet. It's a quiet, desperate act of sanitation in a world that has forgotten the meaning of the word. Then comes the final line, the one that changes everything. They communicated not with letters, but with symbols. A chalk mark on a barrel, a knot tied in a rope left on a fence post, and one symbol above all, scratched by a fingernail onto a damp tavern wall, or etched into the bottom of a beggar's bowl. It was the one thing the church's assassins could never seem to eliminate, the one secret they could never crack, the crude, simple sigil of a mouse. And they were listening. Always. This is a different kind of power, a different kind of God, perhaps. One made of logic and brass. Your orders are your absolution. You set your jaw and begin to scrape. The machine vanishes piece by piece. The ghost of a gear fades under your blade. The ghost of a piston dissolves into nothing. When the page is a pale, scarred blank, you dip your fresh quill into the pot of iron gall ink. Your hand is steady as you write the new holy words over the ghost of the old. It's a text on exorcism. The steward turns and leaves, the heavy door thudding shut behind him, plunging the room back into a suffocating quiet. The feast is over. The joy has curdled into a cold, hard knot in your stomach. Your new husband will not look at you. He is a good man, a strong man, but he is not powerful enough to protect you from this. As the last guest shuffles out into the night, leaving you both alone in the flickering candlelight, you understand the true weight of your new life. His effigy is the one with a gaping maw, not to channel rainwater, but to swallow the city whole, its stone eyes wide with insatiable greed. This is the medieval equivalent of a political cartoon, a silent, institutional mockery that will outlive them all. It is a rebellion carved in silence, an act of defiance that becomes part of the very structure you are meant to glorify. You bring the mallet down, crack, a chip of stone flies, and the tax collector's nose becomes just a little more hooked. The smoke from the pyre smells of burning sin. That is the lie they tell you, the one you are meant to breathe in until it fills your lungs and chokes the questions in your throat. But you know the truth. You can smell it beneath the acrid, greasy stench of burning fat and hair. The fainter, sweeter scent of chamomile and feverfew. The sharp tang of a truth being incinerated. They aren't burning witches. They are destroying midwives. You are 19. You are saving lives, you tell yourself. The bishop's gout, the baroness's debilitating migraines. They pay in gold for your miraculous prayers, and that gold feeds the monastery. It is a necessary sin. But as you check the delicate glass coils of the alembic, your eyes fall upon the symbol etched into the far wall, a symbol you carved yourself. It is not a cross. It is not the comforting face of a saint. It is a small, simple drawing of a mouse. Why a mouse? But the women who remembered the old ways knew the truth. It wasn't about the air. It was about the fleas. Newly analyzed soil samples from 14th century plague pits reveal a shocking secret the church tried to bury with the bodies. In mass graves where forensic science finds high concentrations of these specific plant pollens, there is a startling lack of flea casings. The posies were a powerful targeted insect repellent. This wasn't superstition. It was suppressed science, a hidden pharmacopoeia passed down in whispers while the official world prayed and died. They could topple a dynasty with a vial of poison that mimicked a fever, They were untouchable, their authority absolute, their methods infallible. Almost. There was one shadow they could not grasp, one whisper they could not trace, an enemy that had no army, no treasury, and no leader to capture. In the rat-infested alleys of Rome, in the muddy market towns of France, and even here, in the holy heart of the beast, a counterintelligence network was watching them back. They were the servants, the scribes, the beggars, the whores, the invisible people. The abbot himself handed it to you, his eyes hard. "Cleanse it," he'd said. The vellum is heavy, the ink a faded brown. It's not a story or a poem. It is filled with drawings, schematics, intricate, interlocking circles, strange levers, impossible-looking gears connected by lines of force you cannot comprehend. There are no words, only this complex, silent language of design. It feels dangerous. A thought from a mind so different from your own, it feels alien. You believe demons live in the fog. You believe a saint's knucklebone can cure the plague. You hear the crisp, metallic clink as it settles, an ASMR trigger of pure dread. It's not payment, it's a seal, a token for compliance, a price for your husband's silence. It's a horrifyingly familiar transaction, a dark mirror reflecting the way powerful men today use their status to prey on the vulnerable. They don't need a medieval law. They have influence, money, and a system that encourages victims to stay quiet. They don't have to write it down for it to be true. They will not see the truth. They won't see the sneering face of Bishop Renaud, the man who preaches piety while his fur-lined robes are paid for by the bread taken from your children's mouths. He is over there, 3 figures to the left, his stone jowls forever bloated with hypocrisy. They won't recognize the merchant, Guillaume, who hoarded grain during the famine until the price was so high that mothers sold their bodies for a single sack. But you have forgotten one crucial thing about spiders. Everyone wants to crush them. And a king with a crown to protect and debts to erase is the most dangerous man in the world. He is listening, not to the prayers, but to the clinking of your coins. And he is beginning to learn your name. You publicly preach that a fever is a demon to be prayed away. But down here, in private, you mix willow bark into a powerful pain reliever. You create antiseptics from distilled alcohol. You practice a medicine 100 years ahead of its time, profiting from the very knowledge you condemn as heretical. It's a spiritual Ponzi scheme, the ultimate hypocrisy. It's no different than the modern corporations that run commercials about saving the planet, while their sealed internal reports detail the rivers they've poisoned. The lie is the same, only the costume has changed. You see the wealthy walk by, holding perfumed cloths to their faces, convinced the disease is a punishment carried on the foul wind. But the posies weren't just any flowers. They weren't a futile attempt to block a smell. They were a recipe, a specific combination of tansy, rue, and wormwood, herbs documented in the old books, the ones the priests burned, calling them devil's work. The pocket full was a precise dosage, crushed and stuffed into small linen pouches worn under the arms and around the neck. The church called it witchcraft. It was the medieval blueprint for modern covert operations. They perfected the art of regime change 7 centuries before the term was ever invented, using the cloak of morality to hide the dagger of statecraft. The whispers in these corridors are more dangerous than any sword. The chill of the stone, a constant reminder of the secrets it keeps. The institution that defined sin and salvation for an entire continent was the single most effective intelligence and assassination network in the known world. They could hear a treasonous thought in a king's mind 1,000 miles away. They don't understand that history is not a stone tablet, but a living document, and you are performing surgery on it without anesthesia. You are systematically rewriting the past to fit the present your masters are building. It's the ultimate act of historical vandalism, a quiet, patient, and total destruction of a competing truth. It's the 13th century equivalent of wiping a server and all its backups to hide a corporate crime. They didn't just burn the books of the old world. They wrote right on top of their ashes. You pick up the next manuscript. When geneticists mapped the Y chromosomes from excavated medieval graveyards, they found a disturbingly narrow lineage, a single paternal line repeated over and over that didn't match the other men in the village. It matched the DNA found in the tombs of the local manor house. Parish records tell the same story, showing a statistical spike in firstborn children conceived months before the recorded wedding night. It wasn't a rite, it was rape, institutionalized and ignored, a form of taxation paid not in coin, but in flesh and trauma. The steward places a single silver coin on the rough-hewn table. Your world is stone, sky, and the grating screech of your chisel against the limestone block that will soon become a permanent scream against the heavens. Your knuckles are raw, bleeding into the gritty gray dust that cakes your hands. You taste it on your tongue, a coppery film of your own hard labor. This is the secret the church hides in plain sight, the one they paid you to create, but will never understand. 99% of people who look up at this cathedral will see monsters meant to ward off evil. They will see the official story. For a moment, you see it not as your own, but as the silhouette of the lie you are living. The weight of the gold on the table is immense, but the weight of the secret is heavier. It binds you, protects you, enriches you. But secrets this large, fortunes this vast, attract attention. You think of the baron whose land you now technically own, the merchant who owes you a gift he cannot afford, the king whose finances are now inscribed in your secret book. You are a spider at the center of a web of immense, invisible debt. The chamber is small, lined with lead to contain, the evidence. A complex web of glass tubes and copper pots sits over a carefully banked fire pit, a complete distillation kit. On shelves carved into the earth are hundreds of small clay vials, each marked with a symbol only you and 2 other brothers understand. These aren't holy relics. They are chemical compounds, tinctures, and potent analgesics described in the works of the great Islamic physician, whose books are banned by the very church you serve. A small voice, thin and reedy, drifting from a window 2 houses down. Ring around the rosy. Your breath catches in your throat. It's Elsbeth, the baker's daughter. She's only 6. The sound is innocent, pure. It's not a game. 99% of historians will tell you the rhyme is a 19th century invention with no connection to the plague at all. They are wrong. They haven't listened closely enough. They haven't understood the desperation. A pocket full of posies. This is the first part of the code, the part everyone thinks they understand. The official records, if ever found, will show a massive, untraceable payment to a secular agent for diplomatic services. 2 weeks from now, The Duke of Orvieto will die in a tragic hunting accident, a wounded boar goring him in a freak mishap. His lands, conveniently, will be bequeathed to the church to pay for his sins. This is the true Inquisition. What they don't want you to know is that the public trials, the crazed heretics and accused witches, were the theater. They were the distraction. The real work was surgical, silent, and ruthlessly political. It speaks of a woman's love for another woman, a thing so far beyond your world of prayer and punishment, you can't even form a clear picture of it. It vanishes. You shave off a diagram of gears and water wheels, a treatise on Roman engineering, so advanced it feels like a devil's magic. It is gone. 99% of people will never know this happens. They see you, a humble monk, and see the preserver of knowledge, the silent guardian of Western civilization. They don't see the censor. They don't see the cleanup crew for history. This is the moment that shatters 1,000 fairy tales. The truth of your world isn't about chivalry, it's about property. And on this day, the Lord is simply inspecting his. The true horror is in the silence that follows, the averted eyes of your neighbors, the grim set of your husband's jaw. No one protests. To protest is to have your cottage burned. To protest is to be flogged in the village square. To protest is to disappear. This is the fact that modern analysis has proven, a truth that makes academics profoundly uncomfortable. The face you are carving is not a demon's, it's a man's. And if he ever found out, you would be hanged before the bells ring for vespers. The wind tries to peel you from the scaffolding, 100 feet above the mud and manure streets of the city. It whips your thin tunic against your skin and whistles a hymn of pure vertigo in your ears. Down there, life is a frantic scurry of rats and men, both fighting for scraps. But up here, you are a god. This is the playbook they will never admit to writing, a strategy so brilliant it will be copied for 1,000 years. It's the same quiet hypocrisy of the modern tech giants who preach connection and community, while their true business is a silent, predatory harvest of your life, your data, your attention, all for a profit they call by another name. The church didn't just save souls, it leveraged them. It weaponized sin to crush its financial competition, creating a monopoly on capital blessed by the cross itself. Your candle gutters, and your shadow writhes against the stone wall. Your fingernails, stained with dirt and something darker, scrape against the rough stone as you find the hidden groove. With a low groan of protest, the stone pivots, revealing not a passage to a tomb, but a steep, narrow staircase spiraling down into the earth. The air that rises to meet you is different. The incense is gone, replaced by a faint, sharp tang, metallic, almost bitter. It's the smell of secrets, the smell of forbidden science. Down here, the world of God ends and the world of Avicenna begins. The stench of vinegar and stale sweat clings to the rough wool of your tunic. From somewhere in the house, your mother coughs, a wet, rattling sound that scrapes against your bones. The church-sanctioned doctor came once, his terrifying bird mask stuffed with sweet herbs to ward off the miasma, the bad air he claimed carried the pestilence. He shook his head, took your father's last silver coin, and left you to die. You know his herbs are useless. You've seen it. The healthy fall sick. The sick fall silent. Then you hear it. The cardinal finally looks up, his gaze sliding past the assassin to a small, heavy leather pouch on the edge of the desk. The Holy Mother Church provides for all her children, a stipend for an agent to travel and offer counsel. The sound it makes when the contractor picks it up is the only real truth in the room. A soft, dense thud of leather and metal, the sound of a life being weighed and sold. There is no haggling. The price was never in doubt. With every pass of your blade, a word dies, an idea turns to dust. It's a delicate, terrible craft. Too much pressure, and you tear the skin. Too little, and a ghost of the original thought remains. You can feel the fine gray powder of forgotten words clinging to your knuckles. It's the dust of a language you are not meant to understand. From a time you are taught to call pagan and barbaric. You scrape away a line of poetry, the curve of the letters, so elegant, it feels like sacrilege. Power is its own law. What they don't want you to know is that the evidence for this silent, systemic violation isn't found in legal texts. It was found in the ink of parish birth records, and more recently, in the very bones of your ancestors. You feel your father's hand on your shoulder, a useless, trembling gesture of comfort. The steward's eyes, bored, impatient, flicker over you. He speaks to your husband, his voice flat. The Lord sends his congratulations and his compliments to your bride. It is not a compliment, it is a summons. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. A king who needs to fund a war, a king who cannot get a loan from the merchants his own priests have condemned. So he comes to you, to the Templars, the warrior monks, the only people with enough capital, enough secrecy, and enough divine authority to launder a fortune. You feel a tremor of power, cold and deep. You are untouchable, an agent of an organization that owns fleets of ships, vast tracts of land, and the secrets of nearly every nobleman in Europe. 99% of people believe monks spend their days in silent prayer and copying Bibles. The truth is, some are running secret pharmaceutical labs, and you are one of them. Later, when the moon hangs like a sliver of bone in the ink-black sky, you make your move. You don't carry a candle. You know these halls by heart, the specific chill of the air near the crypt, the way your footsteps echo differently in the passage behind the altar. You reach a specific flagstone, one that looks no different from the 1,000 others. They told you the song was about death, a quaint, morbid nursery rhyme sung by children dancing in a circle, a sweet melody for the end of the world. But what they don't want you to know is that it was never about surrender. It was a declaration of war. You press your forehead against the cool, greasy glass of the window. The world outside is painted in shades of gray and fear. Down the lane, a door marked with a crude red cross is sealed shut. A living tomb. You haven't felt fresh air in a month. The cardinal speaks, his voice a silken caress that could soothe a crying child or condemn a king. The Duke of Orvieto, he begins, not looking up from the immaculate letter he pretends to read, has become theologically troubled. His influence spreads a sickness of the soul among his people. There is a pause. The candlelight flickers, making the shadows on the wall dance like shackled demons. His soul is in peril. It would be a mercy for God to call him home. Before he damns thousands, the man in the monk's robe says nothing. He simply watches. The only sounds are the distant, drowsy drone of evening chant and the noise you are making. A soft, rhythmic shh as your knife, sharpened on a whetstone just this morning, glides across the page. This isn't paper. This is vellum, the skin of a calf, scraped and stretched and treated until it is a pale, creamy surface, hungry for ink. It costs a fortune, more than the food you'll eat in a year. Nothing is ever wasted. That is the official reason for your work. But you know the truth. This is not recycling. This is all eyes fall, not to the steward, but to you, standing in the simple wool dress that marks you as a bride. Your new husband's hand, which was warm and firm in yours, is suddenly slick with sweat. This is the secret that history tries to sanitize. 99% of people, even many historians, will tell you that the droit du Seigneur, the Lord's right to the first night with a bride, was a myth, a salacious fantasy. They are right in one way and terrifyingly wrong in another. It was rarely, if ever, a written law. They didn't need a law. Every forbidden mouthful of venison wasn't just nourishment. It was a political statement. It was a small victory in a long, grinding war for survival. It's the same tactic of resource control you see today, when food deserts are engineered in poor communities, denying them access to healthy food, perpetuating cycles of poverty and ill health. The methods are more sophisticated, but the strategy is medieval. Suddenly, a sound cuts through the night. It's not an animal. It's the baying of a hound, distant but getting closer. The Lord's foresters. Panic seizes you, a cold hand squeezing your heart. It is a gift for which he provides a reciprocal gift of a slightly larger amount at a later date. Semantics, loopholes in God's law, written by the very men who claim to speak for him. You are not a usurer. You are a financial artist. You dip your quill into the pot of iron gall ink. The scratch of the nib on the parchment is a dry, whispering sound, like a serpent's promise. You are recording a new debt for a king. The sweet, cloying smell of frankincense is the first thing you notice. It's a holy fog that clings to the vaulted ceilings, a scent meant to lift prayers to God. You kneel on the cold stone, the hard floor a constant, humbling reminder of your place. The abbot's voice drones on, a river of Latin promising salvation for the pious and damnation for the sinner. He speaks of sickness as a trial, a divine punishment for a faithless world. You nod along, your head bowed in feigned reverence. But you know the truth. You know what lies beneath your feet. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and the lives they try to erase, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. This is the history hidden in the shadows, proven by chemical residues in burial sites that experts once dismissed as pagan contamination. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprises you most, or what role you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. The air, thick with the scent of beeswax and cold ambition, feels heavy in your lungs. Before you, a man in a cardinal's crimson robe sits behind a desk of polished oak. His face is a mask of serene benevolence, but his eyes are chips of obsidian. Across from him stands another man, cloaked in the humble brown wool of a Franciscan friar. But this man is no friar. His shoulders are too broad, his stillness too predatory. He doesn't fidget, he waits. This is a contractor. The most important book in this monastery holds a secret. The secret is that it's not one book, it's two. and you are the one who is killing the first to give birth to the second. The candle gutters. Your shadow, a hunched and monstrous thing, dances against stone walls that have seen 1,000 such nights. A cold that has nothing to do with the weather seeps into your bones. A damp chill, born in the earth and trapped here in this silent scriptorium. The sound of the steward's horse is the only sound that can make a wedding celebration fall silent. One moment, the cottage is thick with the sweet smell of honeyed ale and the warmth of a dozen dancing bodies packed onto the earth floor. The next, a cold draft snakes in as the door swings open, and a man in the Lord's livery stands silhouetted against the fading light. He doesn't have to raise his voice. He doesn't even have to speak. His presence is enough. The fiddler's arm freezes mid-bow. Laughter dies in throats. It means a sympathizer lives nearby, someone whose barn will hide a carcass until it can be butchered by moonlight. Historians would have you believe this was rare, the desperate act of a few criminals. But recent archaeology tells a different story. They dig in the packed earth floors of peasant hovels, and they find a truth buried for centuries. They find far, far more animal bones than official records could ever account for. Fragments of deer, wild boar, rabbit, and pheasant, ghosts of illegal meals that fueled a quiet, desperate resistance. 99% of people, from the lowest serf to the most powerful duke, believe the church is a fortress against earthly greed. The truth is, they built the vault. They invented the system. This ledger in front of you, its pages thin as moth wings, holds the secret. A loan to a French baron is not a loan. It is a land lease. He gives you his land as collateral, and you rent it back to him. The rent, of course, is precisely calculated to match the forbidden interest. A cash advance to a Genoese trader is not a loan. So you stare at the impossible tool that just performed a forbidden surgery, and you have to wonder, where did it really come from? And what other secrets are buried right under your feet? Inside is a pungent green paste. What they don't want you to know is that this isn't witchcraft, it's science. A precise compound of willow bark and a common weed the church calls demonic. You can feel the cool shock of the paste on your fingertips as she applies it. This isn't just folk medicine, it's an act of heresy, a rebellion. This single act is part of a silent, invisible war, a mouse of forbidden knowledge nibbling at the stone walls of Rome, the unshakable authority of the church and crown. They lied about the past. What else are they lying about now? The church preaches forgiveness, but its most powerful sacrament is silence, bought with gold and sealed in blood. This is the secret 99% of the faithful will never know. The truth buried beneath 1,000 years of piety. They told you the Inquisition was about saving souls from heresy. That was a lie. It was about consolidating power, and its primary tool wasn't the crucifix, but the stiletto. You are standing in a place that does not officially exist. It is a pocket of shadow, carved from the heart of the Vatican itself. You only know that outside this room, the ships are coming, and a decision made in fear and heresy tonight will become the most dangerous, most successful secret of the 14th century. They called it the silent bell. She said it rang once, a long, long time ago, and then went quiet forever. You stare into that empty patch of heaven, a hole in the sacred map. The church has no name for it, no story for it, because to them, the heavens are perfect and unchanging. They pretend the void isn't there. But you saw Terran's face. He knows it was. What kind of power can erase a star from the sky? And what happens to the people who are cursed to remember it was ever there? He pulls a small, sharp knife. You hear the faintest sound, an ASMR-quality scrape of steel against rough bark. It's a sound that could get you hanged. He's not defacing the Lorne's property. He's writing a message. He carves a crude, simple shape into the wood, just below a knot that looks like a watching eye. It's a mouse, a tiny, humble creature, a symbol of surviving on the scraps, of living unseen in the walls of a hostile world. For those who know how to read this forest language, this mouse means the trail is safe. The merchants in the pews shift on the hard benches, their faces a mixture of fear and resentment. They need loans to buy wool from England, to finance their caravans to the east, but the church has made it a crime against heaven itself. You almost smile. If they only knew. If they could only see you now, a knight of the Temple of Solomon, a holy warrior, running the largest, most sophisticated banking network the world has ever known. You've seen it 100 times, but tonight, something is different. You reach out, your fingers tracing the cool metal of the trephine's bit. It's impossibly hard, yet light. It's a silvery gray metal, one that doesn't rust, one that holds an edge through procedures that would dull common iron or bronze. He tells you it was a gift from a traveler who came from the East. But the official timelines, the ones written by scholars, say the process for refining a metal this pure, this strong, hasn't been discovered yet. Not for another 400 years. A child's breath is a shallow, rasping sound in the dark, a frantic rhythm of fever. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. This is the world they tell you about. The village priest has already been here. He performed the rites, bled the boy, and declared it God's will. But now he is gone. The door is bolted. You watch the mother pry a loose stone from the floor. From the darkness below, she retrieves a small clay pot. They try to control the narrative through legacy media, to censor dissent on your screen, to label any inconvenient truth as misinformation. They create new heresies to maintain their power, telling you what to think, what to fear, what to accept. They want you to believe you are powerless, ignorant, and in need of their guidance. But the mouse is still here. It's in the open source communities, the citizen journalists, the scientific studies they bury, and in the quiet, unshakable feeling that there has to be another way. The system is betting on your compliance. It is a serpent swallowing its own tail, but coiled around the sharp, clean lines of a mason's trowel. The mortar is the first secret, he says, his voice barely a whisper. It teaches you how to build a wall that cannot be broken. This, he places the heavy book in your hands. This teaches you how to build a world. It will be the result of the vote you're about to cast. We will put it to a vote, the rector says, his voice a dry rasp. Do we trust in God's mercy alone, or do we commit this Trentino? Your hand feels impossibly heavy. You raise it, your shadow dancing on the stone wall like a hanged man. You don't know if you are voting for salvation or for a damnation more certain than the plague itself. He points to a patch of the sky that is unnervingly, perfectly black, a void. It's a hole in the otherwise seamless tapestry of night. Your eyes strain, but there is nothing, not a single pinprick of light, just a profound and absolute emptiness. You can hear the scrape of his fingernail on the salt-crusted wood of the railing as he steadies himself. "There," he says, his voice dropping so low it's nearly stolen by the wind. "My grandmother, and her grandmother before her, they had a name for a star that was there. A whole pattern. A starving man. A man whose muscles are perpetually deprived of the very building blocks of life, does not. He is docile. He is weak. He is controllable. This is the secret that underpins the entire feudal world. Control the food, and you control the people." Alaric pauses, his hand raised. He listens, not with his ears, but with his entire body. You can almost feel the vibrations of the world through him. The metallic taste of fear is coppery on your tongue. Then, he moves to a specific tree, one that looks like any other. Each coin makes a sharp, metallic clink as you stack it, a sound that cuts through the muffled prayers like a knife. This is the real music of the church, the sound they don't want you to know exists. Upstairs, Father Michael is preaching. You can almost hear his voice thundering from the pulpit about the evils of usury. A mortal sin. To lend money and demand interest in its return is to sell time, and time belongs only to God. It is a path to damnation, he bellows, a rot that infects the soul. Years from now, archaeologists will unearth skulls from your time. They will find these holes, and what they'll see will shock them. Not shattered, infected bone, but clean, smooth, healed edges. Evidence that the patient didn't just survive the procedure, but lived for years, even decades afterward. Some skulls will show 2, even 3 healed trepanation holes. The survival rate wasn't a lucky fluke. For relieving cranial pressure, it was shockingly high, a forbidden surgery that actually worked. You watch Thomas clean his tool, a strange gleam in the candlelight. The greatest lie ever told isn't etched in a king's decree. It's buried in the packed earth beneath a peasant's floorboards. It's the story that 99% of us were taught, that your ancestors were brutish, ignorant, and lived in filth, waiting for a priest or a lord to save them. This is the single most successful fabrication in history, and you are about to see why it was created. You are in a hovel in the year 1250. The air is a thick blanket of wood smoke and damp earth, clinging to your skin, filling your lungs.